Everybody wants to know my mental secrets. Bruce, what techniques did you use? What ancient wisdom? What special meditation? Wrong question, man. You think I had some kind of mystical brain power. Listen, that's completely ass backwards. I was obsessed with one thing: my mental weaknesses. You see this guy everyone calls a legend? I spent most of my time figuring out why my mind screwed me up. During training, during fights, during those damn Hollywood meetings where they told me I wasn't leading man material because I was Chinese. Every night I'd lie there thinking about every mental mistake I made that day. Where did my mind betray me? Where did I react instead of respond? Where did I let emotion cloud my judgment? Most people don't want to do this. They want to feel good about themselves. They want to believe they just need to unlock some hidden mental power that's already there. Bullshit. I wasn't born mentally strong. I trained to remove mental weakness. Big difference. See, everyone asks, how did Bruce Lee get so mentally powerful? That's the wrong damn question, because it makes me some kind of superhuman you can't relate to. The right question is, how do you systematically eliminate the mental garbage that stops you from seeing reality clearly? Because that's what I did. I didn't add some mystical mental powers. I subtracted the mental interference. Your mind is like water, right? But right now it's water trying to flow through a pipe packed with junk. Most people want to know how to force more water through. I learned to clear the damn pipe. The enemy isn't your circumstances. It's not other people. It's not even your past. The enemy is the mental noise in your head that stops you from seeing what's actually happening. You want to understand my mind? Forget all that mystical Eastern wisdom crap. Forget positive thinking. We're talking about mental combat here, and the first fight is always with yourself. So how did I actually train my mind? Same way I approached martial arts. I stole everything useful and threw out the rest. You know Jeet Kune, right? Absorb what is useful, reject what is useless, add what is uniquely your own. Well, I applied that exact philosophy to mental training. First, absorb what is useful. I studied everybody, Krishnamurti. That guy taught me more about awareness than 10 years of meditation. He said the observer is the observed, meaning when you're watching your thoughts, you are your thoughts. That blew my mind because it meant I could change my mental patterns just by observing them clearly. I read Western psychology, Eastern philosophy, watched how different fighters handled pressure, studied how actors got into character. I even watched how my daughter reacted to things. Kids don't have mental interference yet. They just respond naturally. I stole techniques from everywhere and made them my own. A breathing method from yoga, a focus technique from archery, a way of letting go from Taoism. I didn't care where it came from. If it worked, I used it. But here's the key. I tested everything. I didn't just read about it or think it sounded good. I tried it under pressure. Did it work when I was sparring? Did it work when some producer was telling me I'd never be a star? Did it work when I was broke and didn't know how I'd pay rent? Most people collect mental techniques like trophies. They read about meditation and think they know meditation. They read about visualization and think they can visualize, but they never test this stuff under real pressure. Second principle, reject what is useless. Man, I rejected a lot. Traditional Eastern mysticism. Most of it was beautiful philosophy, but useless for actual mental combat. All that stuff about achieving some permanent state of enlightenment, that's fantasy. Your mind is constantly changing, so your training has to be constantly adapting. But I also rejected Western materialism. The idea that mental toughness is just about forcing yourself through pain, grinding harder, pushing through everything. That's not mental strength, that's mental stupidity. Most mental training is like classical martial arts. Beautiful, traditional, completely impractical for real fighting. It looks impressive, but when you actually need it, it doesn't work. I had this personal war against any thinking pattern that didn't serve reality. Didn't matter if it was ancient wisdom or modern psychology. If it didn't help me see clearly and act effectively, it was garbage. Third principle, add what is uniquely your own. This is where I developed my own methods. Nobody taught me these. I had to create them because the traditional approaches weren't enough. I developed what I called emotional ranges. Just like in fighting, you have different ranges. Kicking range, punching range, trapping range. I realized emotions work the same way. Anger has a range where it's useful and a range where it's destructive. Same with fear, excitement, calm. I trained different emotional states like fighting techniques. I'd practice accessing controlled anger when I needed intensity, then switching to calm observation when I needed to analyze. Most people just react with whatever emotion shows up. I learned to choose. Then there's daily dying. Every morning I'd consciously let go of yesterday's mental patterns. Who I was yesterday, what I believed yesterday, how I reacted yesterday. I'd let that guy die. Today, I start fresh. This wasn't positive thinking bullshit. This was recognizing that holding on to yesterday's mental patterns is like trying to fight today's opponent with yesterday's strategy. It doesn't work. And mental sparring, I'd have arguments with myself. Literally. I'd take one position, then argue the opposite position, then attack both positions from a third angle. Most people avoid mental conflict. I sought it out because that's how you test your ideas under pressure. The goal wasn't to win these mental arguments. The goal was to make sure my thinking could handle real opposition before I needed it in the real world. This is how you develop a fighting mind, not through meditation retreats or positive affirmations, but through systematic training under pressure. First pillar, honest self-observation, and I mean obsessively honest. I kept journals, man, not the kind where you write about your feelings or what you had for breakfast. I tracked my mental patterns like a scientist studying lab rats. Every day I'd write down when my mind failed me, when it served me, and why. Did I get angry during training today? What triggered it? How long did it last? Did the anger help my performance or hurt it? Was I reacting to what actually happened or to some story I made up about what happened? Most people observe themselves like proud parents watching their kids. They only see the good stuff. I observe myself like a fight judge scoring every round. Brutal honesty, no excuses. Here's what I discovered. Your mind lies to you constantly. It tells you stories about why you reacted a certain way, why you made certain choices, why things happened the way they did. These stories feel true, but they're usually bullshit designed to protect your ego. So I developed what I called catching yourself in the act. Real-time awareness of your mental patterns as they're happening, not after the fact when you can rationalize them away. Like when I'd get frustrated during a difficult scene. The old Bruce would just think, this director doesn't understand my character. But catching myself in the act meant recognizing the frustration the moment it started and asking, what's really happening here? Am I frustrated because he's wrong or because I'm not prepared enough to explain what I want? This takes serious training. Your mind doesn't want to be observed. It's like trying to catch yourself blinking. The act of watching changes what happens. But here's the key. You have to observe without judgment. This isn't about beating yourself up for having mental weaknesses. It's about seeing them clearly so you can work with them. I had this exercise called the mirror exercise. Not looking in an actual mirror, using other people as mirrors for your mental state. When someone irritated me, instead of focusing on what they did wrong, I'd ask, what does my irritation tell me about my mental state right now? Usually it revealed some insecurity or attachment I didn't want to admit. If I felt superior to someone, that was information too. What was I trying to prove? What was I afraid of? The other person was just a mirror showing me something about my own mind. This sounds easy, but it's the hardest thing you'll ever do. Your ego will fight this like hell because it survives by staying unconscious. The moment you start really observing your mental patterns, your ego starts losing control. I tracked my mental performance the same way I tracked my physical training. How many times did I react emotionally today versus respond consciously? How long did it take me to recognize when I was lost in thought versus present to what was happening? What percentage of my mental energy was spent on useful thinking versus mental noise? Most people don't even know their mental baseline. They have no idea how often their mind wanders, how often they react emotionally, how much mental energy they waste on useless thoughts. I kept stats. Like a fighter tracking his punch accuracy or a basketball player tracking his shooting percentage. You can't improve what you don't measure, but here's the crucial part. Be your own worst critic, but not your own worst enemy. Worst critic means no excuses, no rationalization, no protecting your ego from uncomfortable truths about your mental patterns. You see clearly, you record accurately, you face reality completely. But not your worst enemy means you don't use this self-observation to torture yourself. You're not trying to prove you're a piece of shit. You're gathering intelligence about how your mind works so you can work with it better. The difference is this. A critic wants to improve performance. An enemy wants to destroy. When you observe your mental weaknesses, you're collecting data, not ammunition for self-attack. This honest self-observation is the foundation of everything else. You can't fix mental patterns you can't see. You can't change reactions you're not aware of. You can't improve a mind you don't understand. Most people skip this step because it's uncomfortable. They want to jump straight to the techniques and tricks. But without honest self-observation, you're just putting makeup on a face you've never really looked at. Second pillar, intercepting mental attacks. This is where martial arts and mental training become the same thing. In fighting, you don't wait for a punch to land and then deal with the damage. You intercept it before it reaches you. Same with destructive thoughts. You stop them at the source, not after they've already screwed up your mental state. Most people let negative thoughts complete their full cycle. Someone criticizes them, the thought, I'm not good enough, shows up. They feel bad, then they try to think positive thoughts to feel better. That's like letting someone punch you in the face and then putting ice on the bruise. I developed what I called the 1-inch mental punch. Just like my 1-inch punch could stop an opponent before they knew what hit them, this technique stops destructive thoughts the instant they appear. Here's how it works. The moment you recognize a destructive thought pattern starting, you hit it with immediate, concentrated mental force. Not arguing with it, not analyzing it, not trying to replace it with positive thoughts. You just stop it dead. Like when that voice in your head says, you're going to screw this up. Instead of thinking, no, I'm confident, I can do this, you just cut the thought off completely. Stop. That's it. No negotiation, no discussion, no energy wasted on mental combat. But timing is everything. Wait too long and the thought gains momentum. It's like trying to stop a punch after it's already in motion. Much harder than intercepting it at the source. This takes serious training. Most people are mentally lazy. They let any thought that shows up run wild in their head. That's like having no defense in a fight. You're going to get beaten up. Then there's mental footwork. In fighting, footwork isn't about moving your feet. It's about positioning yourself strategically so your opponent can't hurt you while setting yourself up to attack. Mental footwork is positioning your mind strategically in conversations and situations. Before I'd go into a difficult meeting, I'd position my mind in a place where their attacks couldn't land. If I knew someone was going to try to intimidate me, I'd position my mind in calm observation mode. If I knew they'd try to flatter me, I'd position my mind in critical analysis mode. If I knew they'd try to confuse me with complex arguments, I'd position my mind in simple truth mode. Most people just walk into mental combat with no strategy. They react to whatever the other person throws at them. That's like fighting with your eyes closed. Mental footwork means you choose your mental position based on what's coming, not just reacting to what hits you. But here's the advanced technique, the counterattack philosophy. Instead of just defending against mental attacks, you turn them into fuel for your own mental strength. Someone tries to make you feel inferior, you use that energy to fuel your determination. Someone tries to discourage you, you use that pressure to sharpen your focus. Someone tries to anger you, you use that intensity to fuel your performance. And this isn't positive thinking bullshit where you pretend attacks don't hurt. This is martial arts philosophy, using your opponent's force against them. In Wing Chun, we have a saying, the force of the opponent is the force that defeats the opponent. Same principle mentally. The pressure someone puts on you becomes the pressure you use to break through barriers. But this requires training. You can't just decide to do this in the moment. You have to practice converting mental attacks into mental fuel until it becomes automatic. I'd create training scenarios for mental resilience. Just like sparring prepares you for real fights, I'd create mental sparring sessions to prepare for real mental combat. I deliberately put myself in uncomfortable situations. Auditions where I knew they didn't want to cast an Asian actor, conversations with people who looked down on martial arts, situations where I was the outsider. Then I'd practice my mental techniques under real pressure. Can I maintain honest self-observation when someone's trying to intimidate me? Can I intercept negative thoughts when I'm actually being rejected? Can I use their attacks as fuel instead of letting them drain my energy? Most people avoid mental discomfort. They only practice their mental techniques when they're calm and relaxed. That's like only practicing martial arts when no one's trying to hit you. Real mental strength comes from training under pressure. You've got to spar mentally, get hit mentally, learn to take mental punishment, and keep functioning. The goal isn't to never get mentally hit. The goal is to intercept most attacks before they land. Position yourself strategically so the ones that do land don't do serious damage, and use the force of any attack to fuel your own mental power. This is mental combat, not mental comfort. If you want comfort, go read some positive thinking book. If you want real mental strength, you've got to train like a fighter. Third pillar, no mind in action. Now, this is where people get confused because they think no mind means some mystical Zen state where you float around like a monk. Bullshit. No mind is pure function. It's when your training is so complete that conscious thought becomes interference. The Zen guys call it mushin, but I'm not interested in the religious part. I'm interested in what actually works. And what works is this. When you're in action, thinking slows you down. When I fight, I don't think. When I think, I don't fight. Can't do both at the same time. Thinking takes time, and in a real fight, time gets you hurt. But here's what people don't understand. No mind isn't the absence of awareness. It's the absence of mental interference with awareness. Your mind is completely present, completely aware, but it's not chattering, not analyzing, not commenting on what's happening. It's like the difference between watching a movie and watching a movie while someone next to you won't shut up about the plot. Same visual input, completely different experience. Most people live with that annoying person in their head talking constantly. Should I do this? What if that happens? Am I doing this right? What are they thinking about me? That's mental noise interfering with direct action. No mind means you've trained so thoroughly that your body-mind responds directly to what's happening without needing conscious commands. Like when you're driving and you brake for a red light without thinking, red light means stop. The training is so complete, it becomes automatic. But getting there takes serious work. You've got to move from conscious competence to unconscious mastery. First stage, you think about everything. Every movement in martial arts, every line delivery in acting, every word in a business meeting. You're consciously competent but slow. Second stage, you think less, but you're still monitoring yourself. How am I doing? Is this working? Still some mental interference, but less. Third stage, no mind. You respond directly to what's happening without conscious oversight. The training is so complete that thinking becomes unnecessary and actually interferes with performance. I applied this everywhere, not just fighting. In acting, when I was on set, I wouldn't think about how to deliver the line or what emotion to show. I'd become the character and respond directly to what the other actor was giving me. In business meetings, especially those brutal Hollywood meetings where they're trying to box you into some stereotype, I wouldn't think about how to defend myself or what argument to make. I'd just respond directly to what was actually being said versus what I thought they meant. In daily life, when my daughter asked me a question, I wouldn't think about what kind of father I should be or what the right answer was. I'd just respond directly to her, to what she actually needed in that moment. But here's the key. You can't fake no mind. You can't just decide to stop thinking and expect it to work. The no-mind state only works when it's built on a foundation of complete preparation. I had to know my martial arts so thoroughly that I didn't need to think about technique. I had to understand my characters so completely that I didn't need to think about motivation. I had to be so clear about my values that I didn't need to think about how to respond to pressure. No mind without preparation is just mental laziness. No mind with complete preparation is pure effectiveness. And I developed this technique I called the empty cup. Between different activities, I'd completely clear my mental state. Finish a training session, empty cup. About to start acting, empty cup. Coming out of a business meeting, going home to family, empty cup. It's like clearing the cache on a computer. You don't want the mental residue from one activity contaminating the next activity. Each situation requires a fresh mental state. The empty cup technique is simple. You consciously let go of whatever mental state you were just in. The frustration from the last scene, the intensity from sparring, the calculation from the business meeting, let it all drain out. Then you approach the next activity with no preconceptions, no carried over emotions, no mental baggage from what just happened. Fresh awareness for whatever's coming next. Most people carry mental residue from activity to activity all day long. They're angry from the morning commute when they get to work. They're stressed from work when they get home. They're tired from yesterday when they wake up today. The empty cup technique breaks this chain. Each activity gets your full presence, not the leftover mental energy from something else. This is how you maintain no mind throughout daily life. Not by becoming some kind of enlightened being, but by training so thoroughly that conscious thought becomes unnecessary, and clearing your mental state so completely that each moment gets fresh awareness. No mysticism required, just serious training and practical application. Hollywood was my laboratory for testing these mental techniques under real pressure. And man, did that place provide pressure. You want to know about mental combat against racism? I got a PhD in that subject from Hollywood University. Every audition, every meeting, every screen test, I knew I was walking into a room where people had already decided a Chinese guy couldn't be a leading man, not because of my acting, not because of my skills, but because of my face. So I developed specific mental preparation for rejection and discrimination. Before every audition, I'd sit in my car and run through what I called worst-case scenarios. They'd probably say I was too Chinese, too foreign, too different. They'd probably suggest I play the villain or the sidekick. They'd probably tell me my accent was too thick, even though I spoke better English than half of them. I'd mentally rehearse hearing all of that without losing my center. Not positive thinking, realistic preparation. I'd practice maintaining my dignity while they explained why I wasn't American enough for American audiences. Here's what I learned. They can break your body, but they cannot break your spirit unless you let them. That became my methodology. They can reject me for roles, they can refuse to see my potential, they can try to put me in a box labeled exotic martial arts guy, but they cannot touch who I actually am unless I give them that power. The key was converting anger into focused determination. Anger by itself is just destructive energy, but anger converted into determination becomes unstoppable force. When some producer would tell me American audiences aren't ready for an Asian leading man, I'd feel the anger rising. Instead of expressing it or suppressing it, I'd convert it immediately into determination to prove them wrong. Not prove them wrong with arguments, prove them wrong with results. That anger became fuel for training harder, for developing my skills further, for creating opportunities they couldn't ignore. The screen test mind games were the worst. You walk into that room knowing they're looking for reasons to say no. Most actors go in hoping to be accepted, trying to please, trying to fit whatever image they have in their heads. I flipped the whole thing around mentally. My preparation wasn't about hoping they'd like me. My mental technique was this: I am not auditioning for them. They are auditioning for me. Sounds arrogant, but it's actually practical psychology. When you're trying to get something from someone, you're in a weak position mentally. When you're evaluating whether they're worthy of working with you, you're in a strong position. I'd walk into those auditions thinking, let's see if this project is good enough for Bruce Lee. Not, let's see if Bruce Lee is good enough for this project. This wasn't fake confidence or positive thinking. This was a strategic mental position that allowed me to show my actual abilities instead of being nervous about their approval. My visualization techniques went way beyond typical methods. Most actors visualize getting the part, being successful, hearing applause. That's fantasy thinking. I'd visualize the complete reality of what working on that project would actually be like. The difficult days, the personality conflicts, the pressure, the problems that would definitely come up. Then I'd visualize handling all of that effectively. I'd even visualize not getting the part and being completely fine with it because I'd showed up as my authentic self and gave them a chance to work with someone real. This mental preparation meant that whether I got the role or not, I maintained my center. Success didn't inflate my ego. Rejection didn't crush my spirit. Hollywood taught me that mental techniques have to work under extreme pressure with real consequences when people are actively working against you. If your mental training only works when people are being nice to you, it's not mental training, it's mental decoration. The real test is whether your techniques hold up when the world is trying to break you down. Before you walk away from this, understand something clearly. This isn't about feeling better about yourself. This isn't about building confidence or positive thinking or any of that comfortable bullshit. This is about becoming who you actually are beneath all the mental noise. And most people won't do this work because it requires facing yourself, the real you, not the story you tell about yourself. It requires admitting that most of your mental patterns are garbage. It requires giving up the excuses, the victim stories, the comfortable lies you tell yourself about why your life is the way it is. Most people would rather stay mentally weak and feel good about it than become mentally strong and face uncomfortable truths. But if you're willing to be your own opponent and your own teacher, if you're willing to observe yourself brutally, fight your own mental attacks, and empty your cup daily, if you're willing to test your mental techniques under real pressure instead of just reading about them, then you might actually develop a mind that serves you instead of sabotaging you. The mind, like water, can flow or it can crash. You choose, and you can flow around obstacles, adapt to any container, find the path of least resistance while maintaining your essential nature. Or you can crash against every barrier, fight what you cannot change, and exhaust yourself trying to force reality to match your expectations. Water doesn't think about flowing, it just flows. That's the choice. Make it.